Welcome to the deep dive. So you've shared your sources with us, and we're really digging in, pulling at the core insights. The idea is to get you well informed quickly without all the noise.
hmm And today's deep dive, it takes us into this really compelling personal story. It's about a software developer, Soraya, and what happened after she was fired from her job at eTech Solutions.
Right?
And it goes way beyond just, losing a job. Some
Yeah.
really fascinating issues come out.
Exactly. It starts off sounding familiar, maybe feeling undervalued at work, but then it takes this really sharp, unexpected turn involving who actually owned this critical piece of software she built.
Yeah. So our mission today really is to unpack this whole situation. We want to understand, what drove Soraya's actions, where the company eTech might have gone wrong,
hmm
and what it all means more broadly for things like intellectual property, workplace dynamics, and, well, how people react when they feel wronged.
Okay, let's dive in then. So the story kicks off with Soraya joining eTech Solutions, and the account says she was like genuinely excited. A software developer, keen to make her mark.
And it sounds like she really did. The narrative highlights she wasn't just, ticking boxes. She designed and built this software system that, well, it seriously improved how eTech operated.
How so?
It streamlined their workflow, saved them apparently significant money, and it even helped attract new clients. You get a real sense of her pride in what she created.
Right.
And this points to something crucial, I think. If you consistently undervalue people who are making a real difference, well, that can breed resentment. And that resentment can lead to some pretty major problems down the line for the company.
Absolutely. So she's making this impact, feeling good about her work, initially at least. But then things start to sour a bit.
Uh-huh.
She notices she's not really getting acknowledged for these contributions, feels like she's being minimized in meetings, maybe talked over.
Yeah, that classic sign.
And then she hears these whispers, rumors about the company wanting, quote, cheap labor. It's that feeling, isn't it? That your actual value just isn't being seen.
Those are definite warning signs. You
Yeah.
see this growing gap between what she's delivering and how the company seems to view her role. It's this sense of being undervalued, even though she's clearly successful, that seems to set the stage for everything that happens next.
Which brings us to the fateful meeting with her boss, Greg. The account paints it as really abrupt.
No soft pedaling?
Not at all, just straight up. Your employment's terminated, effective immediately.
Wow. And the reason they gave? Just as blunt, apparently. Purely transactional.
Yep, she's being replaced by someone cheaper. Budget cuts. That's it. It
Yeah.
completely ignores everything she built for them.
Right. It's a justification that treats her purely as a cost line item, not as, a valuable asset who created something important.
You can really feel her shock reading the account. I mean, it's understandable, right? Feeling just discarded after putting in all that effort and building something vital for them.
Totally. And this becomes a real turning point. That feeling of betrayal, like she was just disposable despite everything she did, that seems to become this powerful fuel for what she does next.
It's more than just losing a job at that point.
Exactly. It's framed as this fundamental injustice, something she feels she absolutely has to address.
Okay, now here's the twist. As she's reeling from being fired, dealing with the shock and disappointment, she has this realization, a crucial one.
Mhm.
She realizes that she, not eTech, legally owns the software she created.
Boom. That's the curveball. The narrative explains it by saying eTech had been, cutting corners. They gave her a lot of freedom during development.
Right.
But critically, her original employment contract actually stated she retained the intellectual property rights.
So the company just assumed.
It looks like it. They assumed they owned it, which, okay, might be a common assumption, but the contract said otherwise. And this is a key insight, isn't it? Assumptions about IP ownership can be incredibly risky.
You need it spelled out. Clearly defined agreements aren't just paperwork. They're essential to prevent exactly this kind of mess.
Precisely. So just to clarify for everyone listening, when we say intellectual property rights here, it essentially means she had the legal title, the ownership,
Huh.
the actual code she wrote.
Even though she was their employee working on their time.
Correct. They paid for her time, her labor, yes.
Mm.
But without a specific clause, a formal transfer of those IP rights in the contract, the ownership of the software itself, well, it stayed with her.
hmm
And that legal detail, that becomes the bedrock for her entire response.
And she doesn't just, note this fact and walk away. That feeling of injustice we talked about, it pushes her to decide she's not letting this go.
She feels she has leverage now.
Exactly. So her first move is strategic. She starts gathering information, everything she can find about the software.
Right, looking into its architecture, checking out the backup situation, collecting all the project files she still has access to. It's very methodical. She's gathering her tools, essentially, before making a move.
Then she does something pretty bold. She reaches out to a former colleague, someone named Sam,
Okay.
and asks him for help with something quite drastic. She wants him to wipe the company's backups, but crucially, make it look like an accident.
Wow. Okay, that's a big ask. Tampering with company data.
Huge. And Sam, quite understandably, hesitates. You can see why, right? The potential legal trouble is serious.
Absolutely. Sam's hesitation really underscores the gravity here, but Soraya's determination, pushing past his reluctance, it shows how deeply she felt wronged. She wasn't aiming for just a minor inconvenience. She was planning something with significant impact.
To make sure she's on solid ground, though, she consults a lawyer.
Smart move.
And the lawyer confirms it. Legally, she owns the software. The key distinction, again, is that eTech paid for her time, not the code itself, and crucially, no ownership transfer ever happened in writing.
That legal confirmation must have been huge for her. It probably shifts her mindset, maybe from just personal frustration towards a feeling of, like, righteous justification.
Yeah.
She's not just angry. She feels legally entitled to act.
So now she moves to execution. Turns out she'd built a back door into the software during development.
The hidden access point.
Exactly. Often built for legitimate reasons, like maintenance or troubleshooting, right? But here, used very differently.
You can see where this is going.
She uses this back door to remotely access their system and lock down their entire database.
Oof. So basically, grinding their operations to a halt.
Completely. Everything relies on that database, internal systems, customer data, you name it. It's effectively unusable. A very dramatic, very impactful move.
And the immediate result inside eTech.
Pretty much chaos, according to the account. Employees getting errors, can't access anything they need, tech support lines are flooded, it's meltdown mode.
Which inevitably leads to
The frantic phone call from Greg, her old boss.
predictable anger, disbelief, probably desperation. Right.
Totally. The account describes him as furious, demanding answers, accusing her. It's interesting, he seems blindsided, almost ignoring the whole firing context.
As if this came out of nowhere.
Right. And Soraya's response, described as very calm. She plays dumb at first, feigns confusion, and then drops the bomb. Actually, I own the software, and no, it's not getting unlocked.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can just imagine Greg's reaction changing on that call.
The account says you could almost hear the shift. From pure anger to this dawning, defeated realization of just how bad the situation was for them. He realizes he's completely reliant on the person he just fired.
A very vulnerable position.
Yeah.
But she doesn't stop just there, does she?
No. She follows up, confirms with Sam that the backups were wiped successfully, so no easy recovery for eTech.
Doubling down, removing the safety net.
And then she takes another step. She starts contacting eTech's key clients.
Ooh, that's strategic. And potentially very damaging to their reputation. What does she tell them?
She explains the situation, but focuses on how the company treated its developers poorly. Interestingly, the account notes she doesn't mention that she owns the software.
Smart. Keeps the focus on their alleged mistreatment, making them look bad, without revealing her specific leverage. That probably hits their business hard.
Almost inevitably, yeah.
Yeah.
Clients start peeling away, and internally, employee morale just tanks. The company is clearly in a major crisis.
It's a significant fallout.
Yeah.
But the narrative then mentions Soraya starts feeling conflicted.
Yeah, there's a hint of that. As she sees the real-world impact of her actions, this sense of maybe guilt or unease starts creeping in. It's not just abstract revenge anymore, it's affecting people, the business.
That makes sense. It's one thing to plan it, another to see it unfold.
Then her lawyer calls with an update. eTech's legal team, they're not fighting her on the software ownership.
They conceded. Wow.
They concede she owns it, and they make an offer. They want to buy it back from her. It's their attempt to stop the bleeding, get their systems running again.
Their conceding ownership is huge, though. It completely validates her position and basically admits their huge oversight. The offer to buy it back just shows how desperate they are.
But Soraya, she initially says no.
Really? Even with them admitting she's right?
Yeah. The account suggests she wants them to really feel the consequences first. It's not just about getting paid for the software. It's about them understanding the value they threw away so casually.
So It's still partly emotional at this point. It's about accountability, not just the transaction. Her refusing shows it's deeper than just money for her.
Exactly. But then there's one more conversation with Greg, a final phone call.
And this one's different.
Seems like it. His anger is gone. Instead, the account describes what sounds like genuine regret. He actually acknowledges they messed up, admits they undervalued her.
He admits it. That's significant, especially given his earlier reaction. What kind of things should companies even do to, stop this kind of undervaluing before it gets to this point?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But yeah, Greg admits their mistake, acknowledges their focus on cost-cutting blinded them to her real value. And hearing that, it seems to have a real impact on Soraya.
How does she respond?
Surprisingly, really.
Right.
Not vengeful, not demanding. She basically says, look, the damage is done. But she encourages him to rebuild, learn from this huge mistake, start by apologizing, regaining trust.
Wow, that's quite a turnaround from locking down their whole system.
It really is. It shows this incredible shift in her perspective. It's like she realizes that just causing them more pain isn't actually going to make her feel better or whole. Encouraging them to rebuild suggests she's ready for closure, ready to move on herself.
So the story doesn't end with her, like, grinding them into dust.
No. The account concludes with her realizing her victory wasn't about destroying E-Tech. It was about proving her point, asserting her own agency, her own value, and then making the choice to let it go. She didn't need their total ruin to feel vindicated.
That's a powerful ending. Not about revenge, ultimately, but about her own personal transformation. She made her point, learned something about her own strength, and decided to move forward.
So wrapping this up, what are the big takeaways from this deep dive? I mean, first, obviously, the huge risks when companies undervalue their people. The potential fallout is massive.
Definitely. And second, the absolute critical importance of clear intellectual property agreements. Nail down who owns what from the start.
No assumptions. And finally, maybe, the complex emotions around workplace conflict. Revenge might seem appealing, but the reality, as Soraya found, can be unsatisfying or even troubling.
Yeah, this whole situation is just a stark reminder of how things can escalate, with really broad implications for both employers and employees.
It really makes you think about those power dynamics, doesn't it? And how badly things can go wrong when communication breaks down, or, like here, when critical details like IP are overlooked.
Absolutely. Mismanagement and assumptions can be incredibly costly.
And that brings us to our final thought for you, listening. Think about this. How could E-Tech have handled this differently to avoid the whole crisis? What does Soraya's story, her actions, tell us about the relationship between creators, developers, employees, and the companies they work for, especially now?
It's definitely food for thought as you navigate your own work life, your own professional situations.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.